My name is Kaiser, and I learned long ago that war doesn't end when the fighting stops. It just changes shape. The cold bit through my worn cloak as I trudged ahead of the supply convoy, my boots crunching through snow that had fallen fresh during the night. Behind me, 12 wagons groaned under the weight of provisions, medicine, and weapons destined for Frostvale hold. The horses strained against their harnesses, breath steaming in the frozen air. I'd led missions like this more times than I could count, but something felt different now. The war was over. We'd won. Yet here I was still scanning the tree line for threats, still counting the seconds between each wagon's movements, still carrying the weight of every life under my command. Kaiser, Orlon called from somewhere back in the line. His voice carried easily in the stillness. The third wagon's wheel is making noise again. I raised my hand, signaling halt. The convoy creaked to a stop behind me. My fingers were numb inside my gloves, but I barely noticed anymore. The cold had become a constant companion, as familiar as the sword at my hip. Orlon jogged up to meet me, his red beard coated with ice crystals. He'd been with me since the beginning, through battles that had claimed better men than us. "It's not serious," he said, reading my expression. "Just needs grease. 10 minutes, maybe." "Do it," I said. "Check the others while you're at it." He nodded and turned back, already barking orders to the drivers. I watched him go, thinking about how many times we'd done exactly this. How many frozen paths we'd walked together. How many friends we'd buried along the way. The snowy path stretched ahead of us, winding through pines heavy with snow. Beautiful in its own brutal way. Deadly, too, if you didn't respect it. Wolves hunted these woods. Bandits sometimes, though fewer now that the war had ended. And the cold itself was enemy enough for most. I looked back at the convoy. Serena sat atop the lead wagon, bow resting across her lap, eyes constantly moving. She was our scout, sharp as winter wind and twice as cutting. Young, but she'd seen enough death to age anyone. She caught me looking and gave a slight nod. Everything clear ahead, but I couldn't shake the feeling in my gut. Victory should have felt like something more than this. We'd won, pushed back the enemy, secured the northern territories. People celebrated in the cities. Yet here, on this frozen path, with these tired soldiers and worn-out horses, it just felt hollow. The loneliness of it settled on my shoulders like the snow that kept falling. I kept them alive through the war, but at what cost? How many orders had I given that sent good people to their deaths? How many more sacrifices would be asked of us before we could truly rest? "Kaiser," Serena's voice cut through my thoughts. She'd climbed down from the wagon and approached silently. "Weather's changing. Storm coming in from the north." I looked at the sky. She was right. The clouds were darkening, building into something nasty. "How long?" "Few hours, maybe less. Then we push hard until we can't anymore." I raised my voice so the others could hear. "We got weather coming in. Once Orlon finishes with that will, we move fast. No more stops unless absolutely necessary." Grumbles and nods from the drivers. They were tired, but they understood. Getting caught in a blizzard on this path meant death for anyone who couldn't find shelter. Orlon waved from the third wagon. "We're good." I signaled forward. The convoy lurched into motion again, wheels grinding through snow and ice. I fell back to walk beside the lead wagon, close enough to Serena to talk if needed, but keeping my eyes on the surroundings. The wind picked up as we moved. The temperature was dropping. I could feel it in my bones in the way the air cut through my cloak. We had perhaps 10 miles left before Frostvale hold. 10 miles that felt like 100. Movement in the trees caught my eye. I stopped, hand going to my sword. Serena's bow came up instantly. "What is it?" she whispered. I stared at the spot where I'd seen something. Nothing moved now, just shadows between the pines and the endless white of snow. "Maybe nothing," I said, but kept my hand on the sword. "Stay alert." We walked for another hour. The storm clouds grew closer, darker. The wind howled through the trees, sending snow cascading from branches. My legs ached. My face was numb. But I kept moving, kept watching, kept counting the wagons behind me to make sure none had fallen behind. That's when Layden appeared on the path ahead, riding a gray horse that looked as tired as I felt. He was the quartermaster's assistant, young and ambitious, always showing up at inconvenient times with paperwork or questions. He pulled his horse to a stop as I raised my hand to halt the convoy again. "Kaiser," he said, swinging down from the saddle. His breath came in quick clouds. "Been riding out to meet you. Got the payment for the supplies." He pulled a leather pouch from his saddlebag, heavy with the clink of coins. I took it, feeling the weight. Gold by the sound and heft of it. "More than usual. This seems like too much," I said. Layden shook his head. "It's what was authorized. The hold's paying premium for medical supplies right now. Fever's been going through the barracks." My stomach tightened. "How bad?" "Not terrible yet, but they want to get ahead of it. That's why the rush on these supplies." He looked back at the wagons, then at the darkening sky. "You planning to make it in before the storm?" "That's the plan." He nodded, climbing back on his horse. "I'll ride ahead and let them know you're close. They'll have the gates open and storage ready." I watched him ride off, disappearing into the swirling snow. The pouch of gold felt heavy in my hand, heavier than it should. Payment for a job well done. But my mind wasn't on the money. It was on Serena, on whether she was warm enough up there in the wind, on Orlon, and whether that would hold for another 10 miles, on getting these supplies to people who needed them before sickness spread through Frostvale hold like fire. The pressure of it sat on my chest. Every decision was mine. Every life was my responsibility. The gold meant nothing compared to that weight. I walked back to check on Serena. She was scanning the trees again, never resting. "Storm's getting closer," she said without looking at me. "I know. How are you holding up?" "I'm fiending." Her jaw was set in that stubborn way she had. "Don't worry about me. Worry about making it home." Home. The word felt strange. I pocketed the gold and moved back to the front of the convoy, resuming my position as guide and guardian. The wind bit harder now. The snow fell thicker. But we kept moving one step after another because that's what soldiers did. We endured. 13 days. That's how long it had been since we'd left Frostvale Hold to gather these supplies from the southern depots. 13 days of frozen paths, nervous nights, and the constant awareness that danger could strike at any moment. 13 days of being responsible for every life in this convoy. And now, finally, as we crested a low rise in the path, I saw it. Frostvale Hold, rising from the snow-covered landscape like a promise. Stone walls gray against the white, towers standing sentinel, smoke rising from 100 chimneys into the storm-dark sky. The sight of it made something in my chest loosen, just slightly. I stopped walking, letting the convoy continue past me, so I could just look at it. Home, or as close to home as I had anymore. Within those walls were warm fires, hot food, beds that didn't move with the wind. Within those walls was safety, earned through blood and sacrifice over years of fighting. But as I stood there watching Frostvale Hold grow larger on the horizon, I felt something unexpected. Not relief, not joy. Uncertainty. The war was over. This mission was almost complete. What came after? Who was Kaiser without a battle to fight, without soldiers to lead, without enemies to guard against? The wind howled around me, and I realized I was standing alone on the path. The convoy had moved ahead, and I'd let myself fall behind, lost in thoughts that had no answers. I shook my head and started walking again, faster now, catching up to Serena and the lead wagon. "There it is," she said, pointing ahead unnecessarily. "Beautiful, isn't it?" "It's walls and stone," I replied. "It's more than that. It's the end of this God's damned cold journey." She smiled, rare enough that it caught my attention. 13 days, Kaiser. We made it. We had. Against weather and distance and the dangers that lurked in wild places, we'd brought 12 wagons full of crucial supplies through safely. Not a single loss. Not one accident. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like an ending. And endings always left me wondering what came next. The storm broke over us an hour later, just as we reached the outer markers of Frostvale Hold's territory. Snow fell in thick sheets, wind screaming across the open ground before the walls. The horses struggled, fighting against the harnesses. The drivers hunched over their reins, barely visible through the white. But the gates were open, just as Layden had promised. Lights blazed from the guard towers. People rushed out to help guide the wagons in, to take the reins from frozen hands, to lead the horses to shelter. We made it. I was the last through the gates, as always. I watched each wagon roll past me into safety before I allowed myself to step through. The moment I did, the gates closed behind me with a heavy boom that echoed off the walls. The storm raged outside. Inside, we were protected. Orlon clapped me on the shoulder, grinning through his frost-covered beard. Another one done, Kaiser. Another one survived. I nodded, unable to share his enthusiasm. My body was here, safe within these walls. But my mind was somewhere else, trapped between what had been and what would come next. The convoy dispersed. Drivers took horses to the stables. Guards moved supplies to storage. The organized chaos of arrival swirled around me while I stood in the courtyard, letting snow melt off my cloak. Kaiser, an officer I recognized, approached, bundled against the cold. Commander wants to see you. Soon, as you're settled. Now is fine, I said. Settling in could wait. Talking to the commander about what came next couldn't. The officer nodded and led me through the hold's interior. Warm air hit me like a physical force as we entered the main building. My face tingled painfully as feeling returned. We climbed stairs, walked down corridors I'd walked 100 times, until we reached the commander's office. The officer knocked, announced me, and left me alone with Commander Thane. He sat behind a desk covered in maps and reports, a man 20 years older than me, with gray hair and tired eyes. He'd been fighting longer than I'd been alive, and it showed in every line of his face. Kaiser, he said, gesturing to a chair. Good work bringing those supplies in. Heard you beat the storm. Barely, I said, sitting down. The chair felt strange after so many days walking. Layden mentioned fever in the barracks. Under control now, but we're watching it. Those medical supplies you brought will help. He leaned back, studying me. You know the war's over, right? The question caught me off guard. I know. Do you? Because you look like a man still fighting. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I said nothing. Thane nodded as if I'd confirmed something. 13 days ago, I sent you on what I thought would be a simple supply run. Last mission before the formal demobilization. But I've been thinking since then, Kaiser, about what happens to soldiers like you when the fighting stops. Soldiers like me? The ones who are good at it. Too good, maybe. He pulled a map from the pile on his desk and spread out. It showed the northeastern territories, vast expanses marked as wilderness, unexplored, unmapped. We won the war, but we haven't won the peace yet. These lands, everything beyond our current borders, they're unknown. Dangerous. Full of opportunities and threats in equal measure. I looked at the map, at all that empty space. You want explorers. I want experienced trek leaders. People who can handle themselves in hostile territory, who can lead small groups through danger and bring them back alive. People like you. He tapped the map. The council authorized funding for expeditions into these areas. Mapping, resource assessment, establishing contact with any settlements out there. It's important work, Kaiser. Necessary work. But not war, I said. No, not war. But not peace either, not the kind that means sitting by a fire and growing soft. His eyes met mine. You interested? I stared at the map. All that unknown territory, waiting to be discovered or to swallow whoever ventured into it. Dangerous, certainly. Probably deadly for some who tried. But it was purpose. It was something beyond the hollow victory I'd been feeling. When would it start? I asked. Soon as you're ready. A week, maybe 2. Time enough to rest, resupply, put together a team. Thane rolled up the map. Think about it. You've earned the right to choose your next path, Kaiser. Whether that's heading east into the unknown or staying here in civilization. That's up to you. I stood, feeling the weight of the decision settling on my shoulders. Another burden, but one that felt different somehow. Not the crushing responsibility of keeping soldiers alive in battle, but the open possibility of discovery, of purpose beyond survival. I'll think about it, I said. But even as I left the office, walking back through the warm corridors of Frostvale Hold, I knew I'd already decided. The eastern wilderness called to me, promising something I hadn't felt in too long. Not peace, not victory, but meaning. And maybe that's what I've been searching for all along, standing on that frozen path, watching the hold appear on the horizon. I was Kaiser, and the war might be over, but my journey wasn't finished yet. I gather everyone in the main hall of Frostvale Hold. The stone walls around us are cold, but the fireplace crackles with enough heat to keep the chill at bay. My squad stands in a loose circle, some leaning against the walls, others sitting on benches. These are the people I've fought beside for months. I know their faces as well as my own reflection. We're heading north, I say, keeping my voice steady, past the borderlands into territory that hasn't been properly mapped in decades. It's dangerous work, but there's opportunity there. Resources, land, a chance to build something. I watch their faces as I speak. Some eyes light up with interest. Others go dark with doubt. Marcus crosses his arms. He's a solid fighter, someone I've relied on in tight situations. Kaiser, I've got family here. A wife who's expecting our first child in 2 months. I can't just leave. I nod. I understand, even if it stings. No one's being forced. I'm staying too, Hella says. She's one of our best scouts, quick and quiet. My mother needs care. She's getting older, and I'm all she has. One by one, they give their reasons. Some are good reasons, valid ones. Others just sound like fear dressed up in excuses. The circle grows smaller in my mind with each refusal. My chest tightens. I thought more of them would see what I see. A future worth fighting for. The silence stretches out. I can hear the fire popping, someone's boots scraping against stone. Then Orlon steps forward. He's been quiet until now, standing in the back with his arms crossed. He's stocky and strong, with a beard that's more brown than gray despite his 40 years. I'm in, he says. His voice is rough, like gravel under boots. I've got no ties holding me here. Might as well see what's out there. Relief floods through me. At least one. Serena speaks up next. She's younger than most of us, maybe 25, with sharp eyes that miss nothing. You'll need someone who can read the land, she says. Someone who knows herbs and can treat injuries when we're days from any healer. I'll come. I feel the knot in my chest loosen. 2. It's not the whole squad, but it's enough to start. These 2 choosing to follow me means something. It means I'm not crazy for wanting this. Thank you, I say, and I mean it. The words feel inadequate, but they're all I have. The others file out slowly, offering apologetic looks and handshakes. By the time the hall empties, it's just the 3 of us standing by the fire. The space feels larger now, echoing with absence. We'll need more people, Orlon says, always practical. 3 won't be enough for what you're planning. I know, I tell him. We'll find them. Serena nods. First, we need supplies. Can't recruit anyone if we look like we're heading to our deaths unprepared. She's right. We need to look legitimate, organized. Like this expedition is something worth joining. The next morning, we meet at the Veterans Rest. It's a tavern that caters to former soldiers and mercenaries. The kind of place where conversations happen over scarred wooden tables and cheap ale. The air smells like sweat, smoke, and yesterday's stew. We claim a corner table. I spread out the list I made last night when I couldn't sleep. Food, medical supplies, weapons maintenance, camping gear, rope tools. The list goes on. We've got about 200 gold between us, I say, keeping my voice low. Other patrons don't need to know our business. It's not much, but it's a start. Orlon taps the list. Food will be the biggest expense. We can hunt along the way, but we need basic rations to fall back on. Medical supplies are non-negotiable, Serena adds. She leans forward, her dark hair falling around her face. I can forage for some herbs, but there are things we'll need that don't grow wild. Bandages, needle and thread, antiseptic. I divide the gold mentally, allocating amounts to each category. It's tight. Everything is tight. We'll need to be smart about this. Buy in bulk where we can, negotiate for better prices. What about more people? Orlon asks. Can't exactly head north with just 3 bodies. That's next, I say. Once we have the basics secured, we recruit. But we need to show potential members that we're serious, that we have our foundation in place. We spend the next hour going over details. Who knows which merchants? Where can we get the best deals? What can we make ourselves versus what we need to buy? The conversation is practical, grounded. It feels good to focus on concrete problems with concrete solutions. By midday, we've got a plan. Serena will handle the medical supplies and food. Orlan will focus on tools and camping equipment. I'll deal with weapons and the harder negotiations. Meet back here at sunset, I say. We'll count what we've got and see where we stand. We split up. The streets of Frostvale are busy with midday traffic. Merchants call out their wares. Children run between carts. Guards patrol in pairs. I weave through the crowd, heading toward the Mercurial Exchange. The Exchange is the largest trading post in Frostvale. It's a massive building with 3 floors, each one packed with goods from across the region. The air inside hits me immediately, a mixture of leather, metal oil, dried spices, and something musty. Voices echo off the high ceiling, dozens of conversations happening at once. I find RA on the 2nd floor. She runs one of the better equipment stalls, specializing in weapons and armor. Her display is organized and clean, unlike some of the chaotic booths nearby. Swords hang on racks, sorted by size and quality. Armor pieces are stacked neatly. Kaiser, she says when she sees me. RA is short and broad-shouldered, with gray streaking through her black hair. She's been in the business longer than I've been alive. Haven't seen you in a while. What brings you in? Need to outfit a small expedition, I tell her. 3 people for now, maybe more soon. Quality gear, but I'm working with limited funds. She nods, not judging. What exactly are we talking about? Weapons maintenance kits, backup blades, maybe some light armor if the price is right. We'll be traveling through rough territory. Need gear that won't fail when it matters. RA walks along her displays, pulling items down. She sets them on the counter between us. A maintenance kit with files, whetstones, and oil. 2 well-made daggers with leather sheaths. A set of lightweight chain that would fit under a cloak. This would run you about 60 gold normally, she says. I wince. That's almost 1/3 of our total funds. I can offer 40. 50, she counters. And that's because I know you'll treat the gear right. Some of these young idiots who come through here don't know how to care for equipment. Orlan and Serena arrive while I'm negotiating. They've been browsing other stalls, and now they join me at Ra's counter. 50 is steep, Orlan says, examining the chain. But this is solid work. We need reliable gear, Serena adds. Cheap equipment will cost us more in the long run. I'll look at the items again, run the numbers in my head. If we agree to 50 here, we'll have to cut corners elsewhere. But Serena's right. Equipment failure in the wilderness could mean death. What if we buy in stages? I suggest to RA, take the maintenance kits and daggers now for 30. Come back for the chain when we've secured more funding. RA considers this. She picks up one of the daggers, testing the balance. Tell you what, give me 40 for everything now, and I'll throw in a couple of extra whetstones. But you pay me in full before you leave Frostvale. None of this will pay you back later business. It's more than I wanted to spend, but it's less than her original price. I look at Orlan and Serena. They both nod. Deal, I say, and we shake on it. RA wraps everything carefully, making sure the blades are properly covered. You're heading north, aren't you? She asks as she works. I've heard rumors. People talking about expeditions into the borderlands. Word travels fast, I say. Always does. Be careful up there. It's not just the cold that kills people in those regions. We leave the exchange with our new equipment distributed among us. The weight of it is reassuring. Real, tangible progress. Over the next 2 days, we finish gathering what we can. Serena negotiates with an herbalist she knows, getting a bulk discount on medical supplies. Orlan finds a retired craftsman selling camping gear at a reasonable price. We pool everything in a rented storage room near the edge of town. By the 3rd day, we're ready to recruit. That's when the real challenge begins. I start in the market area, where mercenaries and adventurers gather looking for work. The market is a sprawling collection of stalls and open spaces, always crowded, always noisy. I approach groups of warriors, anyone who looks capable and unattached. Looking for skilled fighters, I tell them. Heading north into the borderlands. Good pay. Chance for land claims. Most turn me down immediately. Too dangerous. Too uncertain. Not enough pay up front. The rejections pile up, one after another. By midday, my throat is dry from talking, and I have nothing to show for it. Orlan tries his luck with some of his old contacts. He comes back shaking his head. They all think we're crazy, heading north with barely any funding and no noble backing. They want security. Serena suggests we try the training grounds, where younger fighters practice. Maybe we need people who haven't become cautious yet, she says. We spend the afternoon watching matches. There are dozens of fighters here, testing themselves against each other. Some are clearly amateurs, all wild swings and poor footwork. Others show real skill. That's when I spot them. Two fighters working together against a larger group in a practice melee. They move like they've fought side by side for years, covering each other's weak points, communicating without words. One is tall and lean, fighting with a spear. The other is shorter and quicker, dual-wielding short swords. They win their match. Not easily, but decisively. I approach them as they're catching their breath at the edge of the grounds. Up close, I can see they're both women, probably in their late 20s. The tall one has her dark hair tied back in a tight braid. The shorter one has scars on her forearms, the kind you get from years of training. Nice work out there, I say. You two fight together often. The tall one sizes me up. We're a team. Have been for 6 years. What? I'm putting together an expedition, heading north past the borderlands, looking for people who can handle themselves in a fight and don't need their hands held. The shorter one laughs. That's quite the sales pitch. What's the pay? Honest answer? Not much up front. We're pooling resources, sharing whatever we find or claim. It's a risk, but the potential payoff is substantial. They exchange a look. Some kind of silent conversation happens between them. I'm roofing, the tall one says finally. She jerks her thumb at her partner. This is Run. We've been looking for something more interesting than practice matches and caravan guard work. How many in your group? Peyton asks. She's direct, no wasted words. 3 currently. You two would make 5. I'm looking for maybe 1 or 2 more, but I want quality over quantity. When do you leave? Roofing crosses her arms, but she's interested. I can hear it in her voice. Within the week. We've got basic supplies, equipment, some funds for additional needs. What we need now is a solid team. Rin looks at Roofing. Better than rotting here, doing nothing. Roofing nods. We're in, but we want to see your supplies first. Make sure this isn't just talk. Fair enough, I say. Come to the veterans' rest tonight. We'll show you everything. They agree, and as we shake hands, I feel the expedition becoming real. 5 people. A concrete departure date. This is happening. That evening, all 5 of us gather at the tavern. I lay out our inventory, our plans, our goals. Roofing and Rin ask good questions. Hard questions about logistics, safety measures, contingency plans. They're not just signing up blindly. They're treating this like the serious venture it is. By the time the night ends, we've integrated them into the team. They contribute some of their own savings to the common fund, adding another 50 gold to our resources. More importantly, they bring skills we need. Roofing has experience navigating wilderness terrain. Rin knows how to maintain equipment and has basic smithing skills. As everyone leaves for the night, Orlan pulls me aside. We've got a real team now, he says quietly. 5 capable people, decent supplies. This might actually work. I look around the emptying tavern. For the first time since I proposed this expedition, I let myself believe him. It might actually work. I stand at the edge of Frostvale Hold's main courtyard, watching my crew scatter in different directions to gather their gear. The morning air bites at my face, cold enough to make my eyes water. Behind me, the gray stone walls of the fortress rise up like silent guardians that have watched over this place for centuries. Orlan jogs past, his breath making white clouds in the frigid air. He's got 3 different packs slung over his shoulders, probably carrying supplies for half the group. The man never travels light, always thinking ahead to what we might need. Kaiser, you want the dried meat packed with the medical supplies or the cooking gear? He calls out. I consider for a moment. Cooking gear. If someone's hurt bad enough to need bandaging, they won't be eating dried meat anyway. He nods and changes direction toward the supply shed. Serena emerges from the armory, her sword already strapped to her back. She moves with the grace of someone who's worn weapons her whole life. Her dark hair is pulled back tight, practical for travel. She catches my eye and gives me a curt nod. No wasted words with her. I like that. Pound and Doug are arguing near the stables about something. Their voices carry across the courtyard, though I can't make out the words. Doug gestures wildly with his hands while Pound just crosses his arms and shakes his head. Those two have been bickering since we formed this group, but I've noticed they fight better together than most partners who actually like each other. Barl waddles out carrying a massive pack that looks like it weighs more than he does. The squat fighter refuses help from anyone. His pride is solid as the muscles in his thick arms. Roofing trails behind him, her staff clicking against the stone with each step. She's muttering something under her breath. Prayers, maybe, or protective charms. Rin stands apart from everyone else, leaning against the well with his arms folded. His eyes track every movement in the courtyard, cataloging, assessing. He doesn't trust easily. I can't blame him for that. I run through the mental checklist again. Food for 2 weeks, with hunting expected to supplement. Medical supplies, weapons and repair kits. Rope, flint and steel. Winter gear, though we're already wearing most of it. Maps that may or may not be accurate. The unknown stretches out before us like a frozen sea. Zyphoria lies to the east, weeks of travel through territory that gets less familiar with every mile. I've led patrols before, short excursions into known lands. This is different. This is committing to something that might change all of us. If we come back at all, I shake that thought away. We're coming back. We have to. Everyone ready? I call out. Voices respond in the affirmative, some more enthusiastic than others. Orlon gives me a thumbs up. Serena simply starts walking toward the gate. The others fall into loose formation, adjusting packs and checking straps one last time. I take one last look at Frostvale Hold, the stone battlements, the smoking chimneys, the familiar, and I turn my back on it and lead my crew through the gate. The path stretches out before us, white with packed snow. Our boots crunch against it in rhythm as we walk. The sound becomes almost hypnotic after the first hour. Crunch, crunch, crunch. 8 sets of feet finding their pace. The walls of Frostvale Hold shrink behind us until they're just a dark smudge on the horizon. Then they disappear entirely as the path winds between 2 hills. We're committed now. No turning back for forgotten supplies. No last-minute additions to the group. This is it. These 7 people and me, heading into lands we barely know, chasing objectives that still feel hazy in my mind. Orlon falls into step beside me. How are you feeling about this? I glance at him. His face is open, honest. He actually wants to know. Like I'm leading people into danger I can't fully predict, I say. So like usual then. He grins. Despite myself, I smile. Yeah, like usual. But it's not usual. The weight of this feels different. Heavier. More permanent somehow. The landscape around us is beautiful in its harshness. Snow covers everything in rolling white drifts. Bare trees stand like black skeletons against the pale sky. In the distance, mountains rise up, their peaks lost in clouds. We're leaving behind everything familiar. Every step takes us further from safety, deeper into whatever waits for us in Zyphoria.